I think this conversation could be 10 episodes. And I
Probably
think the
could.
reality is that it'll never be easy, I think, for Brandon and I to ever come into this space and talk about sex.
This is probably the most uncomfortable for me.
Definitely. Yeah. But I know that you guys deserve that from us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there are people who are just like me, and there are people who are just like Brandon. And if we could have had people, if we could have been sitting where you're sitting, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you know what I mean? God only knows what it could have taught us or what it could have been to us.
Yeah.
So I know that the vulnerability is never wasted, never done in vain. Hey guys, it's Chelsea.
And I'm Brandon.
And you're listening to the majestic voices of the religious dropouts. Welcome aboard.
Majestic.
That sounded like that was a boat or something. So I'm excited about tonight because the conversation, we always have like a, I don't know if it's a concept or what, but when we write these episodes, we always have like the point of the episode,
Yeah, the meat and potatoes.
The meat and potatoes, yeah. If you will.
We might have an apple teaser beforehand, but
bone apple tea. You know what I'm saying? But the main point tonight is we are going to be talking about shame and sex and intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit, I don't think you're going to get your sex ed 101 lesson on this podcast, but I do think we're going to open up and be a little vulnerable about some of our own stories and just a little bit about what the church, honestly fucks up when it comes to shame and sex and all that stuff. We're gonna talk about that. So we don't have a life update today because we're replacing it with this funny little
voicemail we got from somebody.
No. No, I did send this to Brandon. Like, he does have it, just so you know. Okay. But I will just tell you.
Let me see the updated agenda then.
I'm so done with it. But for
you guys, I'm so sorry Chelsea got that wrong. Here's what I want to do instead to start this episode.
I'm a mistake. Now hiring religious dropouts, new co-host. Okay.
Oh my gosh. You know this trend, I love it. So-and-so walked so that
we do need a good
somebody
example.
else could.
Well, Elle Woods walked so Barbie could run.
That's right.
That's perfect. Like what?
Margot Robbie could run.
Yeah.
Or
Reese Witherspoon walked so that Margot Robbie could run.
Life Size.
Oh my God, Tyra Banks.
So I've seen
Tyra Banks
where they
walked
said Tyra
so that Margot Robbie could run.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Absolutely. Bow down to Tyra the Queen. And if you think Life Size is not the best movie ever, you can shut up.
We've sang that song on the podcast, haven't we?
Shine bright, you're a star. Live where you got this star. Yeah, okay.
If we didn't before, we have now.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank God. It needed to be.
You missed a line in there, and that made it to where I didn't know how to jump in.
I was just rocking and rolling.
Yeah. So anyways,
yeah.
What are some spaces where you've walked so that I could run as a friend and vice versa?
Oh, shit. I'm already laughing so hard. Okay. So, I would say that Brandon is a superior snack buyer. Like, I would have never. I showed up to camp with a peanut butter and jelly and almond milk and a protein canister. Okay. Is that not true?
Yep.
I showed up to the camp with a Diet Mountain Dew case, a protein canister, and almond milk.
Yep.
And Brandon walked through the aisles of Walmart getting all sorts of candy and snacks and delicacies. Oreos.
Actual Oreos. Maybe everything was just Oreos. Oreo cakes.
Everything. The white chocolate dip Oreos. Everything.
You brought that to the table, actually. But maybe I walked with
so
Oreos
that I could run,
yeah.
Because otherwise I'd still be drinking protein shakes at camp, know. And I ended up, eating a lot of candy and garbage instead. And it was only because Brandon first walked. So.
I have two things. Is that okay?
Oh, perfect.
Chelsea has walked with Tidy Lucy's so that I could run with Tidy Lucy's. And if you guys don't know this phrase, this is actually This is actually a friend insider we're going to let you guys be on the inside of.
I literally wore them today.
The shorts where there's a tidy layer on the inside, but a loosey layer on an outside.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't know that this is very important for like thighs rubbing.
Very important.
And I didn't understand this.
But I taught him.
And now I have one pair of tidy loosies.
And they're the best things you ever had.
That I do wear to the gym. I think they rock.
Yep, you love them. Yeah.
The other thing that Chelsea did walk with so that I could run
I don't want to know.
Is general witchcraft. Because she is pure evil, obviously. And now I'm just falling into the spell.
If they say it, it must be true. So you're welcome. Where's my wand? Excuse me.
You should have a wand.
I do. My brother Dylan got me a wand from Harry Potter World, and it's the Harry Potter wand.
I have a wand from.
I love him.
Do you know whose wand I have from that
Probably
I bought?
Voldemort. Sirius Black.
I
knew it. God.
Although now I'm kind of wanting Lupin. When I rewatch the movies, I'm kind of like, ooh, I might be a big Lupin fan.
I do love him.
Yeah.
So our next segment, it's new. And we played it for you. Last week was the first week with the new segment. Today is the second week, and it is called
Big Mad Energy.
What y'all mad about now? Y'all really pressed over that shit? Wow. Big Mad. Y'all got Big Mad Energy.
Big Mad Energy this week. We're always behind, right? Like it's like social issues or political issues or Big Mad Energy issues to the anti-woke community hit the anti-woke community a month ago, and then we talk about them on the pod, right? So like that's just how it is. So I know that you guys have been mad and then been fine and then been not mad or whatever the hell a week ago, right? Like this is old news for you, but we're gonna talk about it anyway. And it is Jason Aldean.
Yeah.
Jason Aldean.
Try that in a small town.
Better not, honestly.
Gosh.
So try that in a small town. I actually pulled up this article from NPR.
Yeah.
I thought I want to be the most clear. And so the article is, without reading the whole thing, because we'd be here forever, the article basically covers like your main points that like the song was not really necessarily an issue until the music video came out. And then it talks about how the song was released like a month before the video or something, or 2 months before. And the song lyrics themselves, some of them were triggering, but they really were not that triggering until the music video came out and it had all this innuendo that people were like connecting with Black Lives Matter protests and
right.
a lot of similar to the George Floyd murder and things like that. So just
historic shootings.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I wanted to read part of this NPR article because here's the thing. Actually, there was someone that listens to the podcast, and if she's the only person that did this, then I am calling her out, and I do love you, and I hope you keep listening. If not, I get it. Mm-hmm. But we had one person that listens to the podcast that I did see on Facebook the other day post, I stand with Jason Aldean.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I wanted to talk about this in our Big Mad Energy moment, because not just because she posted that, because it's like, well, let's talk about what you're standing with and let's just like really look at it for fact value, right? Yeah. Like the bottom line. So you're like, oh, there's snowflakes. Why are you so worried? Well, I just want to just one quick thing.
Acute chronic snowflakeism.
The CMT, Country Music Television, if you didn't know, said that they will no longer air the music video. So I just want you to know, for an organization to do that, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So obviously this is not like some, woke agenda. When CMT is removing it, has removed the music video, that doesn't happen like ever. So That's a pretty big deal in itself.
I think also it's important to note that there have always been questionable themes in country music, and CMT doesn't really remove videos like
always.
But the fact that they're willing to about this does show that this is dramatically different.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so much of the criticism around the video, I'm reading the NPR article now, just so you know. Much of the criticism around the video has less to do with all of the things aforementioned, which is the things we just kind of talked to you about, like just the references to the social justice issues with racism, number one, and then with even some of the lyrics glorifying gun violence. There's some of that stuff is what was mentioned in this article before. But anyway, it has much less to do with that stuff and more to do with its setting. The Maury County Courthouse building in Columbia, Tennessee, which serves as an American flag draped backdrop for Aldean and his band. This particular location is huge because the landmark was the site of race riots in 1946, as well as the 1927 lynching in which a white mob pulled an 18-year-old black man, Henry, I don't want to mispronounce his last name, Coyote. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, from jail and dragged him through the city by car, according to several media reports, including a detailed account from the Washington Post. This 18-year-old boy had allegedly confessed to attacking a 16-year-old white girl to protect his life, even though the girl couldn't even positively identify him. Jason Aldean then made a statement after CMT pulled the music video and said, like, literally the lyrics of what you said, the music video of what you put out, and the location in which you chose to film, like, obviously we're done. Jason responded, and he said he was against pro-lynching, and that the interpretation goes too far, and it is dangerous.
He said against pro-lynching?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
He on Tuesday, Aldean pushed back hard. Against the accusation, saying he was not pro-lynching. Yeah, because they were saying he's pro-lynching, I guess. But so I guess I just want to, I think the whole point of me reading some of that was just because it's like, you can stand with Jason Aldean all you want.
Yeah.
Or you can literally listen to the episode we just recorded about being anti-racist, which I think was episode 8, maybe, or 7. I think 7, actually. And yes, you can take it to heart, and you can think about what anti-racism does look like. And unfortunately for Jason Aldean, a lot of the things he mentioned were tried in a small town, and a lot of Black people were murdered and lynched. And
right.
And then you still chose to record where you recorded it. And this is kind of a situation where no one should be standing with Jason Aldean. Instead, you should be saying, I can see the harm in this, whether I agree with it or not. I can see it, and it sucks. It sucks for people who are offended by it. It sucks for people who love him. It sucks for everybody. Yeah. But you can at least identify that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, and I understand for some people that's their genre. That's their dude. They like his style. And you have to give up something that's comfortable of that's something you enjoy, is that country music. You you play it like that.
Yeah.
You support him.
Yeah.
But in the concept of try that in the small town might be badass to say, but the reality is people been tried.
Yep.
People,
exactly. They're just not you, probably.
their lives shouldn't have to feel threatened for you to feel like you enjoy your music.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yep. And that's really what Big Mad Energy is about. We want to kind of focus on kind of these, man, why are these people mad moments that happen in our culture? And we kind of want to sometimes have a little fun with it. Sometimes break some things down.
Yeah, exactly. It is an insane blessing and privilege to have Sycamore Creek Church as one of our sponsors on the Religious Dropouts podcast. When we launched this podcast, we never imagined accepting a church sponsorship. But this church really does just hit different. The community of people really do believe in Jesus and justice. They're also LGBTQ plus affirming, which means that all are included and welcome, no matter who we love. They put action and effort into working for racial equity, and they deeply care about being multiculturally curious, creative, and compassionate.
If there was a church the Religious Dropouts could preach a live sermon or podcast at, this would so be it. If church isn't for you, please ignore this ad. But if you are curious about what the body of Christ looks like, This Jesus-loving congregation is located in Lansing, Michigan, and is launching a campus in the Eastwood area on October 1st. Tell Pastor Tom that Brandon and Chelsea said hey.
We do have a phone call though, which is
I was just saying I think we need a good call.
Yeah, I think you were. I think you were. Okay. All right.
Hey, Dropouts. This is Emily. I honestly don't care about naming myself anymore. Hi, guys. I'm Emily. And I just wanted to come on here and share just a story that I think you guys would get a lot of. I know you guys know, but it's hard to share. I was a very involved person in my youth group until my new youth pastor came in, and he gave us a contract that we had to sign. I've never heard of this before. Never, ever have gotten handed a contract at a youth group event. And it basically said, like, you have to follow all of these rules or you can't be, like, a leader in our youth group. And it talked about, like, you need to repent, like, if you are gay, like, if you have homosexual, like, thoughts, like, impure thoughts like that, if you are not, like, sexually pure, like, you can't have sex before marriage, like, sex is meant for a man and a woman, like, all of this stuff, and that was, like, the tip of the iceberg that really just pushed me out of religion, or at least my church in general, but I have not been to church in 8 or 9 months at this point. Like, it's almost a year, and, like, I'm loving it. I'm thriving. Just want to share, and if you guys have any questions, please let me know, and I am more than willing to share more about that story. So thank you. Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Oh, God, that is a hard one.
Sure is. We love you. Thanks for sending in a little clip.
Oh, Emily. God, man. I think the first thing I want to say is, man, I hope you find a space where you feel safe soon. Because being out of the church community for 8 months, as happy as you might feel and as good as it might feel, God, I know there's a community out there that would die for your gifts and talents. Not only because I know you,
yep,
and I know how incredible you are, but because I know, like, you know, God has really just made you different and set apart, you know, and I want a community to experience that. So
right.
I'm praying about that, but damn, I mean, that's just, I guess before we even get into the call, it made me think about youth ministry a little bit on our end. And I just kind of was thinking, like, is there anything that we ever wish we would have done differently? Or, you know, like, is there ever a time where we wish we could kind of take it back in youth ministry? And I just wondered, like, how you feel about that. And
yeah, I think, well, first of all, I made a contract for our, I was trying to get a student leadership team started.
We'll beep it out.
I was trying to get a contract. I made a contract for our student leadership team at the first church I was at.
Yeah.
And, but I'll have to relook that up now because I'm curious, but I don't think I made any, sexual oath kind of statements that they had to sign off on. Like,
it just makes me think, like, well, first of all, I will say, for me, the things I would take back, I think, are you just have you have an authority that is not fair as a youth pastor. Like, okay, cool. You have a job that your literal job is to shepherd these students and members of your church, like, help them on their spiritual journey. And then whatever your job description is, right? Like, I don't know, wash tables, buy pizza, you know, do simple math for events. That's way more complicated, but whatever. So the point, though, is, like, your job is not to police your students.
Yep.
Because you're the authority. Like, bro, you're not God. Like, you're not their parents. you're literally like it doesn't mean you're not influential in their life.
Right.
But it means that like you are not who you think you are. Like the audacity that you bring to the table to say, I'm going to put a morality clause on your involvement in leadership in an extracurricular. It's just crazy to me. Like, and so I think my regret would ever be if I ever had that in my head. Like if I ever felt like I was like almost like a superiority complex. Like I know there were probably times I did, I'm sure. And I just wish I could take those back because like really we ain't shit. Like we're just here to help you and love you and care about you.
I really think I tried to steward every conversation the best way I could. And I think I wanted to be relatable, even if they were telling me a big mess up or something like that. Or like, I think I just wanted them to know I wanted my poker face to be well because like I wanted. So I do think I probably gave some crap advice at different times. And that's probably a better question for some of my students is like, where did Brandon mess up? Or like, because self-awareness is a hard thing to run down. Like
definitely.
But I mean,
well, and we always gave our best. That's the thing.
If
so
we
it's a lot
restarted
harder
now, we would be ridiculously different. Like
absolutely.
In not ridiculously, but in incredibly different in just in a positive way. I think.
I agree.
Yeah. So it's hard to think like where would I have messed up. I know there's students I should have reached out to when my life got busy. I have a lot of grace for myself, but it makes it hard to kind of
definitely. Yeah, there's always something. There's always some things that you wish you could do different.
Right.
I think also like in ministry, you grow with your students and you grow with your experience and your schooling and your time and years served. And so I just think regrets is just, I don't know. I guess if you're sitting around thinking of all these things you wish you could take back, I think you need some therapy probably. And I mean, honestly, I think we're just doing the best we could. But like I said, I do think I wish I could go back and take away some of that. Like you are not superior really. And you are not, you don't get to say so much like you think you do. Like this youth pastor did, like Emily was sharing. I think what also is really triggering to me is, I want you guys to just think about like you're a member of a church youth group. And for some of you, you've never been a member of a church youth group. So you don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah.
But imagine like you're a misfit or a kid that doesn't really fit in. And maybe you're gay. And maybe you're wondering, maybe you're questioning, maybe you're having some thoughts. And you're a part of this community. You're a part of this group of people.
You've laughed with them.
Yeah.
They feed you some pizza.
Yep. You get to hang out. You get to just come and just dump your stuff at the door.
Yeah.
Listen to some stuff about God. And you don't know how you feel about him yet, but you're just listening. You get to be a part of a community, whatever. And then you get handed this contract that's like immediately shame. Like it's one thing when you are one-on-one working with students, right? And so you're like, as you work with students, you just genuinely share the truth with them that you think is the truth. I know we don't agree with this youth pastor on what the truth is, but let's say we did. The way that you're going to present that to them is in a contract they have to sign.
Right.
Bro, like what the? Get your head out of your ass.
And I really hope you didn't know about if this.
I really hope you didn't know any of your students were gay.
Right.
I really hope you didn't hand that damn contract out knowing someone's sexuality.
If you knew and you slid it to somebody that's gay without ever actually talking to them.
Right. Without actually ever ministering to them or walking through it with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they didn't offer that up to you. You just heard it.
Yeah, dude. It's such garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. That Emily, I'm so sorry that happened to you, man. I would have dipped out of that church too. So good for you.
Yep.
Claps. Well, those are snaps, but whatever. But so good for you for your discernment and knowing like that's not God's way. There's no way, dude.
Yep.
There's no way that's how God operates. Especially to students. We get contracts in our job. When you're 40 years old or when you're 25 years old or when you get into careers, like you may have things that, ethics you have to abide by but to come to a youth group and have a contract, it's just, oh my God.
I think what's important to be said too, and this is where we're headed. This is where Emily's leading us into too, is Christians are obsessed with sex.
Dude, but they'll never talk about it. For a community that's so obsessed with sex, they're so obsessed with the shame of sex. That's what it is.
Yep.
They're not obsessed with having. I would have loved to talk about it.
The power of sex,
dude.
It's just wild.
Dude, it's wild. I remember, if you guys haven't heard of this, it's something to definitely check out. but there's a podcast on Spotify called The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill.
Yep.
And it's this church, and there's the pastor of the church. His name was Mark Driscoll, and he's the most dangerous, triggering, disgusting human being, like literally. And I don't talk like that about anybody really.
No.
But like this guy, I mean, it's like the sickest stuff you've ever heard. And he gave this sermon once about how a woman came to his church and was like really uncomfortable with certain sexual activity. And from the pulpit, he's like preaching to his church. It doesn't matter if she's uncomfortable. She's your wife. She has a responsibility. And it's just like, oh my God. Like not even that you would say that, but that you would use the pulpit to say it. Like, that was a huge mega church. How many tiny churches all over the country are perpetuating this almost like rape ministry, like literally, like it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Another podcast is called the Bear Marriage Podcast. That is very, very good. They take apart a lot of Christian curriculum and literature, and they'll say like, why are these dudes being the thought leaders on this without ever like consulting women or learning about the data behind like an orgasm gap or all these different things,
absolutely.
and
like
and
the
just,
health of anything,
just how the health and the data should actually change what we are teaching teaching generations of Christians on this content.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I love that. So I wrote down, kind of just some things that I thought, like, how do we kind of just covered, like, how do we think sex is talked about in the church? I think it's not, number one.
Right.
I went to so many churches. I mean, I sat in hundreds of thousands of church services, and I never once heard sex as a conversation. The only time I heard it as a conversation was an anti-gay agenda. So in my experience, in the thousands of services I sat in, never once heard a sermon about sex unless it was, in my opinion, homophobic in the way they taught it and the way they preached that. But otherwise, for me, it wasn't taught at all. What about for you?
I can think of different times in my growing up in the church that we did talk about it, but it was a once a year kind of curriculum at different stages. So I remember when I was in 5th and 6th grade, I remember our children's pastor, children's preacher talked about like virginity to the girls as like a necklace around your neck. And
wow.
And once it's taken,
you never get another necklace?
Get it back, I guess.
I hope that shit was like $1 million, because like there's a lot of necklaces.
I guess. I don't know. And honestly, it's weird that's what I remember as a 28-year-old man.
Yeah. What'd they tell the dudes, by the way? He said, I don't know.
Why do I remember this dumbass necklace?
Probably
analogy?
Because it was traumatizing, honestly.
So weird. And I remember in youth group, and but honestly, the adults didn't talk about it. And what I learned was how they talk about marriage tells me a lot about what their opinions on sex is.
It's interesting. As an adult, you mean?
Yeah. I'm starting to see that connection.
Yeah.
Like, like if they say marriage is like, men and women are created like
unequal,
unequal, or if they say they're equal but they have different positions, which is the same thing.
Yeah.
Or God gave them different gifts and talents. Like it begins to be like I know exactly how you talk.
Yeah.
How you talk to your wife. If that's how you view your wife in the pulpit.
Absolutely.
I know exactly how you treat her in the bed. We're like, we are all good.
And it is a devastating reality. Yeah. I totally hear that. I think
because that sounds exactly like Mark Driscoll.
Absolutely.
If your wife is uncomfortable, that is too bad. She has to check those feelings at the door. And
that's wild. Absolutely. And I mean, he said that word like almost word for word. So it's not like that's not like, we're not taking anything out of context genuinely, which
honestly, if you dove into the context of what Mark Driscoll actually said.
Yeah,
probably worse. So don't.
Yeah, exactly. We're really doing him a favor, which is a shame.
Yeah,
but
put some floaties on if you're going to dive into that content.
God, man, I remember listening to it in my car once, and it was one of the episodes where he was screaming.
Oh, I had to turn it off when I actually, because they preview that at the beginning of every episode.
Oh,
but then once I actually got to the episode, I was sweating.
Are you talking about the sex one?
Yeah.
Oh God, dude.
I was sweating.
So
I had to turn it off. I just felt like I traumatized almost. Honestly.
And I actually knew like where a couple of the bookmarks were. And I had some of my friends, I'm like, I got to play this for you. I can't carry that. Like, you got to carry this too. Like, I can't carry this alone. Like, if I had to listen to this dude, so do you. But I think
the church for you didn't talk about it.
No. But I think it, as a youth pastor, it was like, I also felt like I never really had to talk about it. Like, I didn't feel like, I don't know. I felt like I was kind of on my own to teach these teenagers about sex in how the church views sex. And I didn't even really understand how the church viewed sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really confusing to me. Like, okay, God says don't have sex before marriage. I have to teach that to teenagers. Like, well, what? I mean, I know like the situation. And then it was like, I know the situation hormonally. And like, how do I tell that message to them with any kind of empathy? Like, I know what they're going through. And especially if they're in a relationship with someone that they love, and how am I supposed to condemn sex between them and the person they love if they're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 30, if they're not married? Like, how do I condemn that sexual relationship when I don't entirely understand the biblical perspective of waiting? Like, I didn't get it. You know what I mean? So as a youth pastor, I was really like, I feel like we're shaming a ton of kids who aren't necessarily always looking at it the way you think they're looking at it.
Yeah.
Like it was always just like, well, we don't want them, or like they just want to have sex to have sex. Like, they don't understand. And it's like, well, I feel like though there are students that I ministered to who didn't just feel that way. They were in love with the person that they marry that person? I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just talking about in that moment, like, they weren't just viewing it as like, they were viewing it as almost sacred and holy, even though they weren't married. And how do I minister to that? Like, it was really hard. It was really confusing.
I started to really struggle when I started to see kind of the church's messages as controlling.
Yeah.
And historically, the patriarchal like dominance that has been like woven into our history.
Yeah.
And starting to be like, oh, well, did I think Christianity was spared of that, from that? Like, from that weaving of a man-made construct of like women are lesser? I think so. So like, then why, then if that's the case, then where would that stop? And would that mean, oh, well, then we have to tell women that like they can't have sex before marriage because then they're tainted?
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, watch any like English courting, like like these Bridgertons and these things that are very popular. These guys are able to sleep around, but they're able to maintain their purity.
Absolutely.
But if that woman's been slept with, then she's damaged goods to where like she has to actually become like like a courtesan to be able to like still like have a respect in the town. And I just think, and this sounds like a tangent, but when you are asking these questions as a leader of like, are we getting something wrong?
Yeah.
It makes you kind of hold your tongue a little bit of like, I'm not going to teach on sex the way that I thought leadership wanted me to.
Yeah. Yep.
And it wasn't asked from us, at least for me. Neither of my two senior pastors asked me to teach on sex. Probably, thank God, because I didn't. Because I think in my time as a youth pastor, I was nervous. Mm-hmm. I talked about dating, but I didn't talk about sex. Like, I felt like this is not something I had figured out. Kind of like what you were saying. You were still under construction, and like what you're figuring out, what you agree with or disagree with the biblical.
Yeah.
with the narrative people put on the biblical narrative. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I feel like my own personal experience, like and this was, I think, what I really wrestled with. I didn't wait. And I'm super okay with sharing that as far as part of my story, because I don't associate that with shame anymore. Like, I don't carry that weight anymore. Like I used to when I first became a Christian, and like I learned that, like, oh, if you didn't wait, like, you're disgusting, and like you have a present that you unwrap that you can't ever wrap back up, and like all this crazy necklace type shit. But I didn't. The most triggering thing for me about not waiting was that, for the most part, I didn't regret it. That's what was so scary to me.
Yeah.
Is I was in the church listening to all this very sex shaming conversation, and I was thinking the people that I had slept with before my husband were good men, like really good men that loved me so well. And they shouldn't have. Like, I was shitty. I feel bad for them. And actually, I've had to go back to some of those men that I had those relationships with. One actually, just a few years ago, and apologize for the way that I treated them. And they trusted me with their heart and their soul.
Wow.
And I was sorry that I abused that and like took sex not seriously, and didn't. And the one actually responded and was like, it's been 10 years, but like, you really hurt me. And like, you really messed me up. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I've had to go back but I guess all I'm trying to say is, it's just interesting to me, because I remember being in the church and hearing that this is what I had to tell teenagers. Like, you cannot have sex till you're married. It's against the Bible. And if you do, like you've got to repent, and then we'll move forward. But like, you cannot do that. Like, you cannot ruin yourself. But then I was like, but I don't feel ruined. Like, I feel like I made decisions with people I really loved, that I deeply cared for, and I don't regret those. I will say, then I met Tyler, and who was the love of my life, right? And I think in the moments that we were first together, where I had to tell him that, right, there was some shame there. I'm not going to dance around that. It was hard to look the person that you love more than anything in the world in the eye and say, I've made this choice a couple other times. But to be honest, like, once I got past that, and of course he, was like, I understand, he had not waited either. And we talked about that, and we had that awkward and uncomfortable conversation that you don't have to have if you waited. Right. So like, there's one reason, but it was just really hard for me. It was really, really hard for me to figure out why I needed to feel such shame about something that, when I was in it, felt beautiful and kind. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it was just really hard coming from an atheist perspective.
Yeah.
And someone who didn't wait, and then coming into the church, becoming a pastor, yada, yada, yada.
And so when you and Tyler started married,
yeah,
you guys had already had that conversation.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Why
right away.
Why do you think you felt like, did you say that you felt shame in that conversation, even though you were an atheist at the time? Like, that's
no. Well, when I think,
but you've been to youth group growing up, so you would have had, like,
I went once, and we never talked about that. We talked about prayer.
Okay.
That time, but I don't think I felt shame at the time. I felt shame like retelling the story later.
Oh, okay.
Like, when we were sitting together and we were sharing, like, hey, this is kind of the life I've lived. These are people that have been pretty important in my story, and you should know about these people.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like that conversation was bad or shameful. But when I got in the church and I had to tell our testimony, nothing but shame. Nothing but shame. So it's interesting. It is interesting, because before the church, I never felt that way.
Yeah.
And then I got in the church, and I was given this narrative, and I was given this how I had to feel, and I felt it, and I carried it. And then when I would teach about sex to my students, I would share that testimony of the shame that I carried. And it's like, well, that shame wasn't really put on me until I showed up here. I just didn't really know it. you know.
Yeah. It was weird when I I was in a much better place when I started, dating Jackie, but I had really struggled in the dating, especially as like a young teenager who discovered porn with his friends, and like just kind of what that did to me as I was like, I mean, imagine like you discover something as powerful and as like uh manipulative as pornography, but you also discover it with your social group.
Oh yeah.
And then that becomes your all this is on your brain, like, and you all are on the
Especially that
same page
young.
of where you could go to get this kind of stuff, and it really wrecked it made me wreck a lot of young relationships. I'm not proud of me currently, is not proud of me as a young high schooler, but I would say I've never felt proud of where I got to in my relationship with dating and sex. But
do you feel like the church helped that, hurt that? Like, what do you think the church's role in how you felt and how you carried that and how you got help for that? Or you know what I mean? Like, where did the church play a role at all in any of that story?
No, I think I think the overarching, I think I would feel shame, and I don't think I could say the church specifically, that congregation I was in, gave me that shame. But I do think the systemic narrative that has carried from pastor to pastor, from family to family, over this is how marriage is supposed to look like, or this is how dating is supposed to look like, and then this is how really dating, marriage, sex is. There's this order to everything.
Yeah.
And then when life and really dating and sex naturally get out of order.
Yeah.
And I know there's some people out there that are going to be like, it's not natural the way it gets out of order. I'm sorry. Everybody,
he does always know what they're going to say. It seems like he must know a lot of people that
I know, but nobody's saying it, y'all. We need some keyboard warriors.
Yeah, no shit. No, you guys are definitely saying it. You're just not typing it.
That's
you know what
true.
I mean?
That's true.
We're still hearing it. We're hearing about it. We're just not reading it. But yeah.
So I did feel this shame of like, I can't bring my true self.
Yeah.
And myself is dirty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was hard because I'd be like, I would hate myself for 30 minutes, hour of my day.
Keep going.
But I would still like who I am. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then I would wonder, why can't I bring the part I hate about myself actually to church?
Right. But I have to keep it hidden.
I have to keep it hidden?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because no one else is talking about it.
Because nobody else.
And they sure as hell aren't telling me it's okay that I'm struggling with it.
No.
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
And as time goes on, and like, as I've learned, some of those things, there's just not quick fixes for it.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
You can't super glue a sex addiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just doesn't happen.
Right.
And I just don't think, I think the church could do a lot more to be patient with in actually walking with people as they work through stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I saw this. I have this book. It's called Shameless by Nadia Bolz-Weber. We've talked about her before, but there's a couple of quotes that I wanted to read really quick from the book, and there's a it's a twofold conversation, but it starts with her talking about purity. Okay. And this book is like a sexual reformation book, right? It's really good. Okay. But she starts saying that purity most often leads to pride or to despair, not to holiness, because holiness is about union with, and purity is about separation from. Holiness is the union that we experience with one another and with God. Holiness is when we become one becomes one. When what is fractured is made whole. Singing in harmony, breastfeeding a baby, collective bargaining, dancing, admitting our pain to someone, and hearing them say, "Me too." Holiness happens when we are integrated as physical, spiritual, sexual, emotional, or political beings. Holiness is the song that has always been sung, perhaps even the sound that was first spoken when God said, "Let there be light." One last part of this quote. So my argument in this book is this: we should not be more loyal to an idea or a doctrine or an interpretation of a Bible verse than we are to people. If the teachings of the church are harming the bodies and the spirits of people, we should rethink those teachings. Mm-hmm. And I think that quote is a lot, but I think the point of what really, of why I really wanted to share it in this space is because of two reasons. The first part is that definition of holiness. So I can look back at my sexual history and I can assure you that there was holiness there. Doesn't mean it wasn't broken. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean I wish I maybe wouldn't have only had those holiness moments with that, but there was holiness there. That there was sacred ground there. Mm-hmm. with men that loved and cared for me. And it's okay for me to honor and be not ashamed now of those stories. But I also think it's beautiful that she brings up that, like, it doesn't mean that we have to teach that to teenagers, that it's okay, whatever you want to do, whoever you want to sleep. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not the messaging, right? But that it's okay to say the teaching that sex is shameful and the teaching that any mistake or any struggle or any barrier that you're having or battle that you're having within your sexual identity is so bad that messaging, if that's hurting people,
yeah,
you gotta stop and reapproach what we're doing. Like burn your contract, right? And like change what the hell you're doing.
Yep.
Because what just happened is you gave a contract to a student. You were more concerned about the doctrine than you were her personhood. And not only did you lose her, the church, we lost her. Because we're the church with you, buddy. Like, that youth pastor, we're all on the same team, man. Yeah. Unfortunately. Thank God our jerseys don't look like yours for more reasons than one, because I know the situation. But at the end of the day, like, so you not only lost a student in your youth group, and we lost a student on the team of the church in general, because you chose doctrine over the personhood of your kids.
Yeah.
And I just think that writing that quote is just such a beautiful reminder that, like, then you got to rethink it. It doesn't mean you can't preach your truth, but it ain't when it's compromising people.
You have to care about the human on the end of your message.
Always.
Yep.
Always.
Yeah.
I don't know, you guys. I think this conversation could be 10 episodes. And I think the reality is that it'll never be easy, I think, for Brandon and I to ever come into this space and talk about sex.
This is probably the most uncomfortable for me.
Definitely. Yeah. But I know that you guys deserve that from us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there are people who are just like me, and there are people who are just like Brandon. And if we could have had people, if we could have been sitting where you're sitting, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you know what I mean? God only knows what it could have taught us or what it could have been to us.
Yeah.
So I know that the vulnerability is never wasted, never done in vain.
I'm so glad we did this episode. I think it's always valuable for me as we're as we're best friends.
Oh yeah.
And we've had conversations about this.
Yeah.
It isn't a day one conversation. It's a trusted conversation that you and I have had.
Yeah, definitely.
Which makes it a little weird to share it with you guys, to be honest.
Yeah. Totally.
But Chelsea and I, a lot of people are going to be like, this is so wrong for Chelsea as a girl and Brandon as a guy to be like having this conversation. And if we could give you guys the window into what our friendship has been like you have no idea. We've had our superiors call us and say, like, hey, are you guys chill with riding in the same car together? Like, or that's not how they put it. They did not ask us if we were chill,
No,
but
they
like
put it a lot shittier than that.
Yeah.
But we have. I mean, it's and
or
we've
like
had,
leaving a door open
Yep.
when we've been in rooms
God,
to be able to
dude.
play Exploding Kittens together. Like,
Yeah,
which
it's a joke. It's
is not an innuendo. That is a card game.
Yeah. Wait,
Did I
is
not
it?
say that?
Is the game
that Exploding Kittens is not a phrase for sex?
I know, but I'm saying that the creators of that game, like, I wonder, they are a little bit like, they're a little sneaky Peter. Like, I don't know.
I do not know. Listen, maybe I just don't know enough about sex, but I just do not know
if anything
the phrase exploding kittens.
But I think what we're trying to get back to, we're not cutting this. Brandon's gonna be like, I'm cutting this. No,
I'm not. This is the
fuck
best
you
belly
are.
laugh we've had.
The fuck you are. But I think that, like, I remember someone pulling me aside once, saying, like, hey, I think your relationship with Brandon's really inappropriate. And it's just like, nobody in our lives ever put that on us except the church.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this whole time we have this very sibling from the get, this very blood but not blood, connection. And our families, not always, but in the beginning, for sure, we were in each other's family group chats, and we were included in things, and we were, my family is in love with Brandon. My family loves Brandon. It was never my family that said, your relationship with Brandon. It was the church. And it's like another reason, like, you guys were not looking out for us. You were looking at you view things so effed up.
Right.
And you view things so ass backwards that even when my family and my other close friends saw Brandon as so valuable in my life and such a valuable brother to me, and vice versa.
Yep.
The church couldn't help but see it as sexual.
Right.
Like, and it's like, how sad. Like, it's just another, I mean, and we're not the only story like that. I mean, there's tons of people that,
but we are rarer in the church world.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Because no one gets a chance.
Yeah.
You get close to the opposite sex and you guys are sleeping together.
I don't even know how it worked, except for
didn't care.
I'm okay with making friends with women.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I generally get along with them better. Like,
we're just better people. Right? I
gravitate toward in if you know me, this is genuine. It's not a sexual thing.
Yep.
I think women are cool.
Yeah.
They're not assholes. Like, there's a lot of things that generally, like, I laugh more with my women friends than I do my guy friends. Like, it's just kind of the way it rolls a little bit. So what I was going to say about that is, like, that just happened to work.
Yeah.
Like, when we started to hang out and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's so funny talking about this, because I just think there are people that you'll believe what you want to believe about our friendship.
Definitely.
I don't think not that I think it's I think more people are concerned that we're satanic than we're like inappropriate.
Been accused,
but with
as many times as we've been behind a locked door, we've been accused way more of worshiping Satan than one another, which is weird to me.
Super weird.
Mean, thank God, honestly.
I mean, both are weird, but like,
but to be worshiping Satan is just a very but you're right, definitely. We've been accused way more of being evil than we have anything
but
else.
No one will ever see the times where because of how you show up for us, that it brings Jackie to tears. Like, no one's gonna see the times where, like, Tyler and I go out for food and you know what I mean, like, and have conversations, like, in the love we have for each other as brothers. Like, it's just, believe what you want.
The time, I mean, I just, the first funeral we ever went to for one another, was your grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so weird to look now, and it's like, your grandpa, your dad, my grandpa, my grandma. I mean, we've just really traveled some places. And so although a lot of those places you won't ever know about, our life and sex and shame in the church, I just think that those are places that we're willing to take you with us there. And I think that it's only fair for the type of environment we're trying to create that you get to be a part of. You might not always be in the room with the Exploding Kittens game, but man, to take you on a journey like this.
And you're lucky you're not, because I'm very good at it.
Oh, Christ. Guys, I got some pictures of a lot of diffuse cards.
You have one picture where you have like 4 diffuses in.
We'll show it. It's a good one.
I have several screenshots of when I'm destroying you at the.
We're over time. Gotta go. Cut the mic off. Yo, tech person, cut his mic.
We love you guys.
Be careful out there exploding those kittens.
Gross.
Hey fam, thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Religious Dropouts podcast. We hope it gave you a space to breathe, to laugh, and connect. It's our hope that as you journey along with us, that you too might find yourself saying, damn, it feels good to be a dropout. Be sure to check out our show notes for links to anything mentioned in this episode, including ways to connect with us on social media. We'd also love for you to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone you know who might want to join our community. You are loved. Have a great week.